Arya Anthony. I work as an engineering leader, vice president for US Bank. Today's topic is the role of FinOps in cloud computing, how FinOps empowering technologists to drive cost efficiency and innovation. My co-presenter is Manu Philip.
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. So my name is Manu Philip, and I work as Director of Engineering for Target.
So this is one of the very famous tagline, right? Great power comes with great responsibility. Any guess who said this one?
Spider-Man.
All right. Thank you. And when we think about cloud computing, right, great scalability is what cloud is offering. And great scalability comes with great responsibility too. In today's session, we will cover how FinOps as a framework help us to handle some of these great responsibility, which is coming along with the cloud computing. If you look at few years back, cloud computing is not a must-have thing. It is more of a nice-have thing for many organizations. We can run our software workload on-premise, or we can have them in the cloud service providers' platforms. But if you look at the recent years, the advancement of deep neural network, artificial intelligence, or sometimes we integrate the large language models to our software applications. Many of these use cases, which require huge computing power, this require huge storage requirements. So cloud computing, more than a nice to have, in many of the bigger enterprises, it is becoming one of our integral part of our day-to-day operations. Let's look at today's agenda in the next slide.
Yep. In this slide, we'll outline what we'll cover today. First, we'll explore the operational framework of FinOps and the cultural changes it introduces within the team. Next, we will look at the cultural mindset behind FinOps, how it's more than just a process, but a collaborative way of working. We will then highlight real-world use case and showcase some of innovative applications of AI in FinOps. Finally, we'll examine common challenges organizations face when implementing FinOps and how to address them. In this slide, we'll discuss what FinOps is. FinOps is a set of principles and practices that help organizations manage and optimize their cloud spending. It introduces financial accountability and operational discipline into management of cloud infrastructure.
Yep. So in this slide, what we are thinking is how can we integrate with FinOps with cloud adoption framework? You may be working for an enterprise where hundreds of applications getting migrated to the cloud service platforms. Or you may be running a startup where you may have a couple of applications which needs to get migrated to the cloud platform solutions. In each of these use cases, these are the few keywords which we can run through as an exercise, whether you are a senior executive or you are a software developer or a tester. The first one is rehost. What that means is you have an application which is running on-premise that you are lifting and shifting to the cloud platform solution without making much architectural changes. What that means, when we think about the cloud migration activities, we think this as three different phases. The first one is more of a pre-migration activities. And the second one is migration. And the third one is post-migration activities. When we discuss about FinOps we consider more as a post-migration activity that once your application is there in the cloud, how we manage the finance or the cloud cost. But if you would like to get a comprehensive picture about the overall cost, we really have to look at the three different stages: the pre migration, migration, and the post migration. When it is coming to the rehost, we are lifting and shifting the application to the cloud. So, you being a software testing professional, how the test strategy will be for this particular use case is we are not making a technology change. So, we just have to make sure the business functionalities are working as expected, both in on prem or how it was working in on prem, it should work exactly in the cloud platform services. And for many of the application may not be exactly ready for this migration efforts. Or if we migrate the application exactly as it is, on a long run, this may have its own cost implications. For example, you may be having purchased some of the software licenses for a licensed database. When you migrate to cloud, you can spin up a virtual machine and get adapted to an open source database. That may drastically reduce the total cloud cost, what we expect on a long run. So you would like to make one change, that may be the database shift, may not be making much changes in the application architecture or your microservices or your UI. And the third use case is re-architect. In this case, or in the earlier case of replatforming, from a testing standpoint, we may not be focused much on the application UI or the microservices, but you may be doing an overall testing. At the same time, there may be more focus on the database part, how this is getting compatible to the overall architecture of the application or overall the business use cases of the application. The next is re-architect. It means I have an application which is providing high business value, but it is not cloud compatible. So in that case, we may need to do a re-architecture of the application. When we were analyzing hundreds of applications for an enterprise for this migration strategy, one thing which we have noticed is, hey, we have a batch load process which is running, and this is running every day, 10 o'clock or 10 p.m. Or I have a data deletion, data purge activity having running in an application, which is once in a week or once in a month. If you look at the underlying infrastructure and on-prem, for each of these use cases, we are running the infrastructure 24/7, 365 days a year. If you just shift this architecture to a cloud compatible format, or if you re-architect this to a serverless architecture, we just need to provision the infrastructure when we require it. So we will be paying for what we use. And there are a couple of other things also have listed here. One is some of the applications you don't see that much of a business benefit, or you're planning to retire that in a couple of years. So that is the retire, which is out there. And retain is another key concept. Sometimes you may have data which cannot move out of certain jurisdictions because of security or compliance perspective. In that case, some of the data needs to stay within, on premise. These are some of the 6R concepts. We will go to the next slide. All right. So cloud migration, we thought as three different stages, right? The pre-migration, migration, and the post-migration. Whatever we have seen in the previous slide, you can relate that to the keyword analyze in this slide. Analyze means before migrating an application, how we do an analysis of what should be the migration strategy. That migration strategy will help us to forecast what should be the cloud cost. So that is the forecast part of it. Once we completed the analysis and the forecasting, then we will be able to optimize the cloud cost. So this is part of the theory, right? You analyze, you forecast, you optimize. Now what we will do? We deploy or we migrate our applications to the cloud. That is the execution phase. And this is the gap. We have a theory. When we actually did it, there is definitely some sort of learnings which we will have. And the learnings we need to apply back to the analysis phase. In this case, we will be doing the analysis on the workloads which already migrated to cloud. So, what we are just trying to bring here is when you think about FinOps, it's not just an operational framework, but it is a cultural framework too. If you have to do this sort of analysis, if you have to forecast, optimize, execute many of these things, this requires lots of collaboration from top down, bottom up, from everybody from the team. I'll stop here. Let's go to the next slide.
Now, who is responsible for the FinOps? And how do we create the right environment for it? The short answer is everyone has to play a role. It starts with the leadership. Executive must define the strategy, establish governance, and foster transparency across the organization. When we say everyone, we really mean everyone from executive leadership to designers to engineers to testers to product managers and financial professionals. In addition, we are beginning to use AI and machine learning tools to automatically analyze cost and suggest optimization. These tools help teams collaborate more effectively and drive smarter, faster decisions around cloud spend.
All right. In the slide, what we are thinking about two concepts. One is AI, that is artificial intelligence for FinOps, and the second one is AI's FinOps. Some of these keywords or even the technology may be slightly new for many people, many professionals in our organization. So who is going to help us? Definitely there will be colleagues who is there to help us, but the people support may be limited availability. Many of the enterprises, especially personally me, are using generative AI technologies, which is already integrated to many of the CSP providers. So for what we use this generative AI technology? The first, to train the team. When we see lot many new terminologies about the cloud platform solutions, it may be a technology aspect, it may be a financial aspect, or sometimes you see a very billing report and you don't know the concepts of what each of these means. So generative AI can train and explain these things to us. And at times, we can get suggestions on various FinOps concepts from generative AI tools. Hey, this is my FinOps billing report looks like. Why my spending really got increased 20% from the last month? Or how can I do a storage optimization, which will help us? And another key thing is AI agents. So they help us in anomaly detection and fixing the anomalies which is present in our platforms. And we can even optimize some of the recommendations what these agentic AI or AI agents provide to us. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, now let's look at some of the challenges which organization face as they start adopting FinOps. So in this slide, let's look at some of the common challenges. First, let me start with the lack of standard billing dashboards. So when organizations use multiple cloud providers without a unified billing view, important details can fall through the cracks. Underutilized or idle resources. It's a common to find unused instances like expensive GPUs left running when models are not being actively trained, or unclear resource ownership. If resources aren't tagged to specific projects or teams, it's hard to assign accountability or take corrective actions. Next, insufficient observability and alerting. Without proper monitoring in place, resource wastage can go unnoticed, leading to unnecessary cost. Let's go to the next.
So what we have seen so far is FinOps as a framework and some of the challenges what teams experiences while we embracing our cloud adoption journey. And these are some of the best practices which we have observed or personally practiced. The very first one is collaboration across teams. This is starting right from the strategic initiatives, the leadership drives, and it lead up to how we write and automated testing. Because if you need to run lots of manual tests within an infrastructure, that is time consuming. If you can really speed up by using automation, that reduces the how long we need to have that particular infrastructure. So this is a framework which require collaboration across teams. And each of the team is responsible for monitoring the resource usage. For doing the test efforts, we may be provisioning IT test environment, UAT test environment, or performance test environment. And spinning up a performance test environment and keeping it for long, that may be huge computing resources which may not be getting utilized much. So monitoring these resource usage is one of the key thing. And cleaning up the resources. You have provisioned a database in cloud, or you have provisioned few virtual machines in cloud, or you have provisioned a high performing GPU for your machine learning validations or machine learning test efforts, or you're running a deep neural network in few GPUs. Once these usage is completed, if we have automated mechanisms in place to clean up the resources, that will make a huge difference in some of the cloud cost. And these will help us to do the real-time decision making. And one of the other thing which we have noticed is the cost ownership. Each of the departments, each of the portfolios need to own the cost, and how we can enable the cost ownership by doing the right resource tagging. Another key thing is the well-architected framework. Most of the cloud providers are sharing the well-architected framework. That is a set of standard design principles. Even they provide many checklists for organizations to run through to make sure we are making the gold standard in these migration efforts. And automated testing, we have already discussed. Many of the teams are using the continuous integration and continuous deployment patterns where we integrate our test cases to that CI/CD pipelines. Let's go to the next one.
Now, continuing on the best practices, organization can approach FinOps with both enterprise strategy and team level design choices. Now, from an enterprise strategy level, cloud adoption can support sustainability goals by optimizing resource usage, that's running workloads only when needed to reduce both cost and environmental impact. Pricings can be negotiated with cloud providers based on scale, adoption, and usage pattern. Now, from the team level architecture standpoint, teams should follow cloud providers' well architected frameworks and best practices. This includes serverless computing, containerized applications, and optimized database solution. Query and database optimization should happen early in the development lifecycle, not as an afterthought. This can significantly reduce the cost. Also, workloads that are resource intensive but not time sensitive can be processed asynchronously in a batch mode. So, choosing the right architecture for such cases helps select the most efficient cloud services and avoid unnecessary spend.
Now, let's look at some of the best practices around the data. Earlier, we used to say, know your customer. When we think about the cloud migration pattern, one of the key things which we have to keep in mind is know about your data. How we will know about our data? We need to have the data about our data. What that means? We need to have the metadata. Data tagging and keeping the metadata are the two key principles. And the next one is the data lifecycle management. Every organization, you may be coming from a development background, maybe from a test background, we need to have an appropriate data lifecycle management, which embraces data quality, data retention, data security standards. To meet these goals, what we need to do, we should be able to classify the data. What are the different kinds of data which we will be dealing with? If you're working for financial institutions or some of the bigger enterprises, we may be having the personal information of our customers, the PII data. Sometimes we may be having the credit card related information, the PCI data. Are we doing the right tokenization, detokenization, encryption, decryption for this data? From a testing standpoint, while we embrace our journey to the cloud adoption framework, earlier we have seen how a tester can integrate their life to the planning phase, that is, replatforming, rehosting, re architecting by understanding the key concepts, how we can place ourselves by choosing the right test strategy for each of the application. And if you look at this slide, this is more about more granular approach. I have an application. I have already decided what is my migration pattern, what is my cloud adoption framework. I have defined my strategy on what needs to be tested. Irrespective of whatever be the strategy, these are some of the best practices which we need to follow when it comes to data, especially the data retention. If you're working on certain jurisdiction, they may have their own security rules and regulatory and compliance standards which teams needs to follow. So we need to make sure, are we adhering to those standards? Now let's go to the next slide. And most of these validations we can really automate, that is related to the data. So these are the few takeaways. All of these principles or framework, which is related to cloud adoption or FinOps, it is not about we working as silos, right? It's not a test group or a development group or a leadership group. All this require collaboration with technology teams, business executives, decision makers, finance teams. And this is not a reactive approach. It's more of a proactive approach. Oh, my cloud cost is too high. Now let me come back and fix it. No, it's not that. We are part of the game early in the planning phase itself. And this is not just about an awareness. I know about these things, but I do have the accountability to contribute to these. In earlier days, we have seen it is 100% people driving these efforts. Right now, there is a shift. It is people and AI companions. It can be generative AI tools, or it can be an AI agent having a companionship with us while we embracing this task. It's not just an operational framework. It is operational and cultural framework. And it's not just about early adoption. It's about early adoption and continuous improvement. And it's not just about the discipline and the cloud cost, but it's all about our sustainable development too. Coming back, great power comes with great responsibility, and great scalability comes with great responsibility too. Hope some of these frameworks and thoughts will help us to deal those things. I will stop here. Thank you for listening.